Yep.
And we got it on 2 angles. Hi everyone, welcome back to Curing My Stage Fright. I'm Julie, and in today's episode, I had such a lovely conversation with my new pal, Marie Kottenstette. Marie is an actor and podcast producer, so this was a huge get for me, since my fear of her judgment around my setup made me hold myself to a very high standard. I'm just kidding. Marie is a wonderful, sweet person. She would never judge my setup. At least I hope not. And I had such a great conversation with her, and I hope you enjoy listening to the episode. I'll see you on the other side.
When I was producing, the person who I produced for would clap whenever he needed to, like, indicate that there was a mistake made.
Oh.
And so you could always tell if things were going on for too long because the claps would get more and more angry.
That's funny. I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and the host was saying that he was gonna have to bleep something out, and so he hit this sound effect that was like a boing sound like 4 times, and he was like, this is the only way I'll know if I have to go back and edit.
I love it.
And it was really,
I love it.
It's like, that's the dream. To have a soundboard is the dream.
I know, a soundboard would be great. I don't know if you watch Curtis Connor at all, and his podcast, Very Really Good.
No, is he the Canadian guy with curly hair and an earring? Yeah,
yes,
okay.
And like a mustache, and he has like a mullet right now.
And, okay. Everyone's got the mullet right now.
Everyone's got the mullet. Everyone's rocking the mullet.
Yeah.
And you know what? I wish I could, but
who's to say you can't?
Actually, so true. Who's to say? Me, probably.
You, yeah.
But he has an incredible soundboard. Like his soundboard. He has so many good meme sounds. I love listening to his podcast, but it's funny to listen to him because it's very organic and it's just him talking. But when he needs to find a specific sound, there's always this long pause. And you just know he's looking for the right button to click and keep it going.
I love that.
Yeah.
I would love the soundboard is when I get reach peak podcast host is when I have a soundboard of silly sounds and quotes and things.
No, you should absolutely get that soundboard. Get it in here. Yeah. Let's go. Get the soundboard.
That's going to be the next step.
Yeah.
And now that I'm sitting down with a renowned podcast producer such as yourself, you can help me.
Yeah, I can give you all of my industry secrets.
Yeah.
Because the podcast industry is so saturated right now, so everyone needs to stand out. Everyone needs to have their thing, their niche.
It's I feel like you sound like you're being sarcastic, but that's so true.
No, it is.
Like, it's incredibly, everybody's like, I could just start a podcast. You have a conversation with your friend one time and you're like, we should start a podcast.
Yeah. You have one conversation where everyone laughs and you're like, we are the funniest people to ever exist. We need a podcast right now. Who's going to produce it? It's me. I'll produce it. It's you.
And you have experience producing a podcast because, I mean, you do a million things. So do you want to... you're an actor, you're a podcast producer, you're an English teacher.
Yes.
What else?
Currently, shout out to Columbia University. I work as the operations manager for one of the student centers up there right now. And so that's my day job. Mm-hmm. So operations manager by day, actor by night. The dream. Which is the dream, The dream is to go immediately from work down to Midtown, head into Pearl Studios, go to an audition, then go to class with you, and then go home and kiss my dog and tell her I love her. Yeah. Oh,
that's me, but with my cat.
Yeah.
And then he tries to kiss me at 2:00 in the morning when I'm trying to go to bed. And I'm like, not now.
No,
you
please.
missed your chance.
Yeah.
And also, you're a relatively new New York resident, right?
I am.
You moved here also in August, right?
I moved here in November.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wait, so literally the day that I met, so Marie and I, for the viewers and listeners, met in our Meisner acting class, which I have talked about several times on this podcast. Because I keep talking about how weird it is, and I love it now I'm really familiar with it. I do love it, but I was like, this is crazy.
Well, and I went to college for English and drama, so I'd had my fair share of weird acting classes before, but this class in particular is very emotional.
Yes.
I've never cried as much as I cry in that class.
Wow. Yeah.
And one thing I really struggled with as an actor was being able to cry and being able to get to that spot emotionally. Not a problem there. Can do it maybe too well.
Yeah.
But I think it's really beautiful how safe of a space it is to explore and to learn. And I think that's probably why there's so much crying, is everyone feels, for the most part, pretty comfortable. But when you first get there, it is, I mean, even for me, it is weird. It's jarring.
So you moved here in November. So when you appeared in class, basically, was like you had just gotten here. Or maybe you were here.
I had been here. So I moved in November, and then I went home for Thanksgiving, obviously. And then I came back, and then I did a kids show called Snoopy's Magical Christmas. I played Peppermint Patty.
Okay.
And then after that ended, I went back home for Christmas. And then when I came back, I think had gotten back the day before. Yeah, no, I did. I got back the day before, had my first day of work and my first day of class on the same day, which was a lot.
Yes.
But it was great. And I got through it. And now I'm here. And now we're here talking, which is fantastic. Yeah.
Friendship is amazing. And you're in Brooklyn for the first time ever.
I am.
Which is very exciting.
And I love it. And if I didn't work on the Upper West Side, I would absolutely live in Brooklyn. I stepped off the subway and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
This is absolutely my vibe. I definitely vibe with this. Because right now I live in Midtown.
Awful.
Which is... You know, it has its benefits. It's really easy to get to auditions, which is great. That's kind of it.
Yeah.
But I'm just grateful to be in New York.
Yeah.
So there's not much I can complain about on that front because I'm here.
Yeah.
And that's all I wanted. So
yeah,
the fact that, my apartment is in Hell's Kitchen is, that's really irrelevant at the end of the day. I'm in New York, which is fantastic. And I love being here.
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
You grew up kind of around the Midwest, Northeast, like Boston, or not Boston, Worcester.
Yep.
Worcester area, right? And the Midwest as well. I feel like there's this thing. I'm from New Jersey, so I'm not that far away.
Yeah.
And so I would come to New York often for like field trips and stuff as a kid. And like, it's not that magical for me.
Yeah.
Is there any sort of element of like magic, especially as like an actor with a lot of creative pursuits, to be like, I'm here in the city of dreams? Or are you like, it's loud and smelly and I'm just here to like work?
I think there's both. There are moments where I feel really romantic about it and very much starry-eyed and innocent and wow, look at all this. I love SNL. I try to watch it live every week. And the first time I watched SNL live in my room in New York, I don't know what it was, but that was such like a romantic moment. I could like hear the sirens and I was in my bed and I was watching it and I was like, it is Saturday night. And I am live in New York. Like, you're correct. Definitely that. The first time I was talking to you about this, the first time I got my hair cut. Yeah. I like left the salon and my hair was all bouncy and I was like, I should hail a cab. Like I've never hailed a cab. But I was like, I feel so New York right now, like with my bouncy hair
and my curls and everything was like flowy.
And I was like, wow, this is great. I should, it's Sex in the City. I'm gonna hail a cab and go make out with someone when I get out of the cab, and it's gonna be phenomenal. And so there's definitely that, and then there's also the reality of taking the bus to work every morning, which is so not romantic and is just like the day-to-day commute of New York City, which is you're with everybody else and everybody's going to their thing and they're all focused on that. And but I kind of love that because where I was coming from was really small and there was a routine, but it always felt like everybody was involved in your routine to a certain extent, especially when I was teaching. And now it's like it's just me getting to work. And I get to work and I do my job and then it's just me going home. And that's great. And it's so simple, but I think I don't know. There's an element about it that is exciting and new, and I still don't hate it yet. I'm sure
Yeah.
if you were to ask me to come back in 6 months, I'm sure I'd be like, I'm so sick of like, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But right now, it's great. I love it.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you may never hate it. It's possible
Maybe.
that you might, I don't know. Like, I feel that way though too, where
Yeah.
it's like you see, like, I don't know if you follow the Overheard New York page on
Yes,
Instagram,
yep.
but it's like everybody seems, it's like there's just jadedness everywhere.
Yeah.
But I think that's also part of like the New York attitude, and it's a little
Yeah.
bit like this in New Jersey of like, I need to drive 80, and if you're not driving 80, fuck you.
Yeah,
You're a
yeah,
huge
yeah.
problem to my life. You don't move with any urgency.
Yep.
I do find that here as well. It's like everybody is engrossed in what they're doing, and I have
Yeah.
to get where I'm going, and I don't really have any regard for you.
Yeah.
Which is like, I guess, nice because at least we're all kind of like on the same page, but also like, I don't know. I find myself getting frustrated with like, especially people in Brooklyn walk super slow for some reason. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I thought New York was supposed to be the city of urgency.
Yep.
Let me walk around you, please. I'm a very fast walker.
Yeah.
But it's also like, you know, you are surrounded by people who are all like, this is a good thing and a bad thing, I guess, is like we all have our own pursuits, and we're all
Right.
just like, I want to do this thing that I
Right.
have to do.
Yeah.
And so like sometimes I feel like weird about that. I don't know. It's like nice to know that like I'm surrounded by, we were talking about this the other day, kind of like so
Yeah.
many people who are all trying to do their dreams or their careers,
Yeah.
and I am too, and I'm like, well,
Yeah.
it's nice because I feel like there is a space for me, but also like, are you all my competitors
Right.
in the industry that I
Right.
want to be in or whatever?
Right. Well, and I was so happy we talked about this the other day too, because it had been on my mind how grateful I am to be surrounded by people who are doing the same thing as me, because it makes you feel this sense of we're all in this together. And I think sometimes in the acting world, it's like, well, if you don't get that role, or if I don't get that role and you get it, that's what was meant for me, and you took it away from me. And I just don't feel that way, at least yet. I kind of feel like, you know, whatever comes to me is what was supposed to happen, and whatever comes to you is what was supposed to happen. And I'm just grateful that I get to watch you work, and I get to watch you follow your dream, and I'll try to help you in that, and hopefully you try to help me in mine.
Yeah.
And I'm just happy to be here and along for the ride. Like, that's definitely kind of where I'm at. But like you were saying, it's so cool because for the first time ever, I'm surrounded by so much art that just you don't have when you're in central Massachusetts. Like,
Yeah.
like there are artists, and I think the New England film scene and the New England stage acting scene is really vibrant and great, but there's just not as much of it as there is here. And I remember, I think the second week I lived here, we went to a show at a bar that's also a theater. I think it's called Don't Tell Mamas. I
Okay.
could be really wrong.
Okay.
It's over by me though. And I went with my roommate Sarah, and we went for a showcase for a woman who's in Matt's class.
Oh, cool.
And it was her 50th birthday, and all these people came to support her, and that was definitely one of those romantic New York moments that I was talking about earlier, where I was surrounded by all these artists, and here was this artist doing what she loved, and everybody was here to support her, and her kids were there, and her husband was there, and it was so beautiful to come into that community when I first got here and to see, wow, these people do support each other, and they are here for each other, and they are interested in what the person's pursuing, and they want to be there for them. And that was so incredible to see when you first get here,
Yeah.
because I think there is that fear in the back of your head, and I don't know if you experience this too, of like, I'm not good enough to be here. This is New York City, baby. Like,
Yeah. Right.
like, I am not good enough to be here. I'm going to be a failure. I think there's like imposter syndrome that hits right away, and that there's this idea that no one is going to support you, but then to go and see all these people supporting this person was so incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is part of it, is like, you think that nobody's going to support you because why would they? And it's like, but you are doing it and I'm doing it. I definitely have moments of like envy, or like, that improv troupe is really good and why should I even bother? And it's like, oh well, because they're really good and they are 3 different people who are not me. And like, I and my peers will bring something else to, like, sometimes there are moments when like, having that community is really helpful because you see other people like actually supporting each other, where you don't always think that that's what's going to happen, especially because you hear about New York and you're like, it's a dog eat dog world out here, and it's like, but then we go to class and everybody's like, we go around and we say what we're grateful for and who we're grateful for, and everybody's like really happy for each other. And that's not to say that like, I'm sure people wouldn't be upset if like, if everybody in Matt's class went out for a role and like somebody got, it's like, which is unrealistic, but like, there might be a little bit of a, oh, I wish, but I'm still going to be happy for my friend. Because that's how life has to work. Did you have that when you were in Massachusetts? Like, was it so small of a community that, like, what was the vibe compared to being here in terms of like auditioning for stuff or doing like stage acting or film or whatever you were doing?
I was mainly doing film, and the New England film scene is really small. So I was consistently going up against the same people, and I would show up for callbacks and I would run into someone I had done a short film with 2 weeks before. So it was a very small pool, which was definitely this like big fish little pond thing that I got into, where it became really easy for me to just get stuff, to get cast in things. And it was nice because it never felt like, when I would lose out on a role, super disappointed, because I knew usually something would be coming down the line. So like, even when someone I knew would get something, I could feel happy for them because typically up there something was coming really quickly. Whereas here in New York, it's definitely like little fish big pond, which I think for me was what I wanted and needed. And I think we talked a little bit about this, how back in New England I felt like I'd kind of maxed out with what I could do, and that if I wanted to get to the next level or whatever you want to call it, I had to move to New York. And so I think because of that, it just helped me feel like, all right, if I want to do something and I want to move on to the next thing, I have to kind of leave this community behind. And I love the New England film community. They're doing some really cool stuff, and I think it's growing, which is really cool to see. But I think there is still this, unfortunately, this mindset in the industry where if you want to do the next big thing, you have to go to New York or LA. And I currently am not an LA girly, so I was like, it's gonna have to be New York. But yeah.
And it is unfortunate that there are like 2 hot spots around the country and that's basically it. And I feel like one day, I mean, when Los Angeles is completely underwater due to the climate crisis, we will have to find a new hot spot.
So true.
But until then, I guess this is just what we're stuck with. So like doing auditions and stuff, I don't know how many you've done here so far. But like, when you are in a really small community, I would imagine that when you go to auditions, you're kind of just like, whatever, I already know this guy, I already know this director, I'm not scared. And then coming to New York and auditioning for a stranger, what has that been like? Is it like an incredibly nerve-wracking? I've never auditioned for like anything in my life, I don't think. I've never been in like an exclusive enough situation where I've needed to audition by myself. And I feel like I would throw up if I had to do it.
I generally have pretty big audition anxiety just in general. In college, I had pretty big audition anxiety. Part of the reason I didn't do stage acting for so long after I graduated was COVID. But then COVID kind of acted as a shield to be like, well, I don't want to go and do an in-person audition.
Oh, so you could
I could just self-tape. Which is way less, for me, so much easier. And then I did a in-person callback for a couple films and then an in-person audition for, I think another short film. And that helped me get back into it. And then I ultimately decided to go back to stage acting, which was kind of its own thing. And that first audition back, they said that you didn't have to have the stuff memorized. You could go in with a sheet of paper.
Oh.
And that was life-saving to me. Because I in college, everyone always says, like, even when they say that, memorize it. And so I did. I memorized it. But just having the piece of paper in my hand and knowing, like, okay, if I really mess this up, I can look down and double check it was huge. But it was terrifying because I didn't know the director or the assistant director for the play that I was auditioning for. I was auditioning for All My Sons. And I went in and I knew nobody there. Oh, this is such a funny story. Well, it's funny to me. I don't know if it'll be funny to everybody else. But I went in, I knew nobody, and I sat down. And there were these two old women sitting in the waiting room, and they were there to audition for Kate Keller, who's the lead of the show.
Okay.
And I, being me, leaned over and was like, "Is this your first time auditioning here?" And they looked at me like I had murdered their favorite dog in front of them. They were like, "No." And I said, "Oh, okay, well, do you like working with this company?" And they looked at me and they went, "Yes." And then they just went back to whispering to each other.
God.
And I was like, why are these two, 60 some odd year old women acting like teenagers? So that totally like freaked me out. And going into the audition, I was like, oh my gosh, what if the people here are really rude and mean? And this is how all of them are. And so I get in there, and luckily the assistant director's daughter went to the same university as me. So when I handed her my resume, she was like, oh, you guys went to the same school. And so that kind of broke the ice a little bit. And then I auditioned and I got called back for all the like female roles that I potentially could have been.
Okay.
And that was huge. And then I went into the callback, and it was the weirdest callback I've ever been to. I've never been to a callback where you watch the other people you're going up against. Normally you wait outside and go in pairs, or like I've never experienced something like this, but he had us sit in the audience and watch everybody else.
Yeah.
And I had this like horrible thought as I was watching this that like, maybe isn't that horrible, but as I was watching all of the other people that I was going up against for this specific role, because I really wanted Lydia Luby and I got Lydia Luby and it was great. But as I was watching everybody else, I had this thought of, oh, I'm the best one here. Like, which is terrible. And I called my friend Tommy afterwards and I was like, am I okay? Like, am I just a raging narcissist to sit in this room and have the thought of I'm the best one here? And he said, no, he's so funny. He said, no, you've overcome the imposter syndrome that every actor has, which is like, I'm not enough. I'm not good enough to be here. And for the first time ever, I had this thought of, oh, I am good enough to be here, and also I'm gonna get this role. If like I'm watching these other people do it and I'm gonna get it, and I did, and that's a huge confidence booster. So coming to New York and doing my first audition here, I'd never done a New York EPA before, which is like it's an equity open call audition.
Yes, you were, okay.
And I'd never done one, and
an equity, just for the folks at home, is the play actors union.
Yeah, it's the it's the stage actor counterpart of SAG.
Okay.
And I'd never done one before, and so I asked my roommates, how do these go? What do you do? And they gave me great advice. They're awesome. And so I went, and it was for Romeo and Juliet, and I decided, okay, I'm going to leave my hair naturally curly, and I'm going to put on like this midi dress, and I'm going to look all cute and unique and fun. And I get there, and everyone looks exactly like me. It was like that scene in La La Land where she gets in the elevator and all the other people look exactly like her. That's how I felt. I looked around and I was like, oh my gosh, everyone here looks like me. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. And luckily, Spencer from our class was there.
No way.
And I almost started crying because it's just the relief of looking across a room that's full of people and seeing someone you vaguely know, especially when you're new to New York, because you know no one and the city's huge. And so to walk into a room and look across the room and see someone you kind of know from class, I like ran across the room to him and I was like, Spencer, like.
That's the moments when you become like best friends with people who are kind of like just acquaintances.
Right.
When you're like, we're the only two people who know each other in this entire room. This is where it happens.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And so I was scared shitless, I'll admit it, going into that audition. And he was there, and luckily and he explained to me what to do, and we were in the same audition group, and we ended up lined up right next to each other. So I went in before him and he went in right after. And I was so unbelievably grateful for that, because I don't know what I would have done, but I definitely would have been way more scared than I was if he hadn't been there.
Yeah.
That was huge. And then I've gone to a couple other auditions since then, and I'm definitely treating all of my auditions right now as just learning how to do it in New York, because it's different than back home. You're just competing against more people. It's more intense.
Okay.
There's this very structured thing, which is great and makes sense, and I'm all for it, but it's just different. And there's a learning curve there. And so I definitely am treating right now as just, okay, this is how you audition in New York. This is where Pearl Studios is. This is where Actors Equity is. This is where all of these different locations that the auditions typically are. And I think that has kind of taken the pressure off them a little bit, because there's no expectation to even get a call back right now. It's just, okay, let me figure out where to go and what to do. And then, eventually I'm sure I'll want more. But for right now, I'm pretty happy with just figuring out where the auditions are.
Yeah. And I feel like that's a good attitude to have, because then you'll have low expectations. But if something does go your way and you get a role, it's like, oh my God, I wasn't even expecting it. And you kind of trick yourself into it.
Yeah. And I sometimes think acting is, because you're dealing with so much rejection so regularly, you kind of do have to trick yourself sometimes. Yeah. And just be like, yep, this is just practice, or the stakes are really low, because I think when you raise the stakes for yourself, you're just faced with a lot of disappointment. Yeah. And that can get heavy. And I think, part of it is just kind of tricking yourself into thinking it's really not that big of a deal. It doesn't matter.
Right. I don't care about this at all. Yeah. That's what I do with improv. I'm like, oh, I don't even care. I'm just doing this because I like want to be good at public speaking. And it's like, no, I really want to do this. I really want to be good at it. But like, what if it doesn't work out, and then everybody thinks that I wanted to be good at it and I'm so bad at it, and it's like, it doesn't even matter. Yeah. Like, it doesn't. I'm allowed to tell people. I've started to tell people, like, yeah, I do want to be good at it, because it's like the stakes should be like a little bit high when you want to do something that you like, I guess, but also like, I don't know, I can't trick myself forever. It's definitely helpful, but I'm too deep in it now to be like, and I'm sure you will be at a certain point once you're like, okay, I know where all these studios are. I know what to do with all the EPA auditions and stuff. At a certain point, you're going to be like, oh, I'm really investing a lot of myself into this. Yeah. And it's going to feel bad if I don't get it, which is fine. Yeah. It's like a part of.
Yeah. It's a part of the process. And I think too, it makes you sort of resilient to always to face rejection and to say, it's okay, I'm going to show up again tomorrow. Yeah. I think that it takes a kind of toughness, and I think there's something admirable in it, to people who can just wake up the next morning and go outside and say, I'm going to do it all over again. And I'm going to be sad about it, and I'm going to cry about it, but I'm still going to go and do it again. I think that there's something admirable about it, and I don't think you get that in many other professions. Normally with a job, I mean, you can get fired, but for the most part, it's not happening every day. You're not getting fired from a job every day, or rejected from a job every day. And I think that it's something kind of unique to performers specifically. And I think that sometimes people discount how much mental, I keep saying the word toughness, but mental
But it
fortitude,
is.
maybe. That can take. And I think it's cool. And I think that when you meet other artists and you see that in them, especially artists who've been working for a really long time, I think it's so cool to see what they've done and the ebbs and flows of their career and how they've just kept with it. Because it is one of those things that there's high points and there's low points, and the people who stick through are like so impressive to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also I feel like it brings the community closer together for people to understand like what it takes to put yourself in that. Like I would imagine, I've never auditioned for anything, but if I were to, it would be like a really nice feeling, like what you were saying with like seeing Spencer and when you were in New England doing auditions there, like seeing the same people and just knowing that like we're all out here trying to work and that's it. Like I'm gonna keep seeing faces at auditions and I'm gonna keep seeing my friends at auditions, and like we're all in this together.
And I think that is one thing where I never try to view the people I'm auditioning against as competition, but more like potential friends.
Yeah.
Because you're sitting there for hours and you're running into the same people a lot, so you might as well be friends with them.
Right.
It can't hurt. You know?
And that's like the stories that you hear about like The Office, where it's like, oh, Jenna Fisher and John Krasinski were in the same callback and there was like a different Jim and Pam somewhere else, but the two of them were chatty or whatever in the waiting area. And now it's like, you know, you have these, I love hearing actors and performers talk about like coming up together.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
We'll be like, well, we came up together at UCB or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's cute. You guys are like little friends.
Yeah. Or like even, I think a lot about Amy Poehler and Tina Fey and their connections and how they knew each other in Chicago and coming to New York and doing SNL. And I think it's so cool that both of them are as successful as they are, but that they were friends through it.
Right.
I think that's something that is easy to forget, is like Tina Fey's success didn't dampen Amy Poehler's.
Yeah.
They both were very successful, and I think that sometimes that can be easy to forget, and it's cool to remember.
Yeah.
That like, your success does not necessarily mean that mine is not going to happen.
You went to Catholic University in Washington, D.C.
I did.
And you edited a Catholic podcast. Was it affiliated with your university, or was it a completely unrelated
No, it was
thing?
completely unrelated. I worked for a company called Ascension Presents, and I produced a podcast called Catechism in a Year with Father Mike Schmitz. He had a...
Mike Schmitz?
Mike Schmitz.
I know a guy named Mike Schmidt.
That's so funny.
And he is certainly not a Catholic podcast
That's
host.
so funny. He had a podcast called Bible in a Year that was incredibly successful. It took off kind of all over the world, and I think it has... I mean, I don't know. I don't want to just start throwing numbers around, but I definitely think it has over 100 million downloads.
Wow.
It was hugely successful. And they decided they wanted to do a follow-up to it, where instead of doing the Bible in a year, they were going to do the Catechism in a Year, which is another Catholic text that's like important to the faith.
Okay.
And I initially thought I was getting brought on as an editor because I was an English major in college as well as a drama major. Mm-hmm. And they had made it seem going into the interview that I was going to be an editor, and I came out of the interview the producer of the podcast, which was surprising, and I loved every second of it. I had no idea that I would love producing as much as I did, because I've always done the acting or the doing side of it, not the sort of post work of it. But basically, when you're a podcast producer, it's kind of like being a team manager. What's the phrase I'm looking for? I don't know. You're just like kind of just leading this little team of people through all the steps and getting things done on time. And it's really technical, but it's really cool to see the finished product and the impact that it has on people and how the reach that it has, because he is an incredibly popular podcast host, and he does have incredible influence and He's very charismatic, and so to get to work on that was really cool. And I think that it taught me that I would love to produce another podcast. So listeners at home, if you have podcast ideas, send them in. I'll produce them.
She will produce them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make you produce mine soon because, well, I've gotten better.
It's
but
great.
I definitely need all the help I can get as I try to move up in the world of podcasting.
Yeah,
but
it's competitive.
Yeah.
We won an award. I think it was called a Signal Award.
Yeah.
And
wow.
which was really cool. And I wasn't expecting to at all, because I think when you're working on something for as long as I was working on that project for, and you're so in it, you forget. This is going to sound stupid, but you forget how many people are listening to it.
Yeah. Because you're like, I'm just here to chop up clips and tell people when things need to get put
exactly.
out.
So you kind of forget that, oh, people are listening to it and they really like it and it's been nominated for something. How cool. So that was really cool. And I think that the podcasting world is so interesting to me because it really is shifting from, right now at least, from being a purely audio medium to being, you have the audio file on Spotify and then you have the YouTube video on YouTube. And I hate to say this because I am a podcast producer. I like watching the YouTube videos.
That's good to know, because I just started doing video episodes because I realized the same thing. I was like, oh, people are really starting to like go into video. And even when you're not, like my old roommate, Nick, shout out Nick. I've shouted him out so many times.
Shout out Nick.
I think he's never heard a single episode, but that's fine. He would like, you know, like he would like make his sandwich at lunchtime. We both had the same job for a bit, and it was like an afternoon job. So it'd be like, oh, make breakfast or make lunch, whatever. He'd go up and he'd sit at his computer and he'd like have his like YouTube videos that he watched, but he would also be doing other stuff. So it's like, you know, like in the same way that like content creators on YouTube or whatever are kind of just doing what podcasts are doing, but they were just doing it on video. And now I think that podcasters have caught on to that, where it's like, oh, these people aren't even necessarily watching the video, but it's nice to be able to, but you can also tab out and just listen like audio. So I feel like that's becoming super in vogue now, is like, oh, we want to have a video episode, which is just basically like we're cycling backwards to like, this is a talk show now, and it's TV, and TV seems really antiquated at this point, but we're going back to it.
No, you're so right. And I think trends are so cyclical, and I really think we're seeing this right now, where you're right, we are going back to basically you're just hosting your own little talk show, and we're all here sitting here watching it, which I'm a huge fan of. I mean, but you think about, there's no more Wendy Williams, there's no more Oprah, there's no more Ellen. And we're finding that in podcasts, really, which is so fascinating. And there's no, you know, I don't know if you remember when you'd come home from school as a kid and your mom would be watching Oprah. Yeah. And it's like 4:00 and you put your backpack down and you go in and she's like, you can't watch this. And you're like, okay.
I think my mom let me watch Oprah. I like remember like distinctly what the Oprah set looked like.
Yeah.
Dr. Phil was also, I was like, this shit is crazy.
Yeah.
And my mom
Dr.
was
Phil
like, this
was
is
crazy.
Trash. But Oprah, it was like weirdly on the same channel, right?
Right.
And I was like, these two people are not the same. But anyway.
Right. And I think maybe why we've moved away from it is our desire to just have everything on demand right away. And so to have to wait till 4:00 every day to watch the new episode of your talk show, when you can hop on YouTube and see the next episode of, you know, Tiny Meat Gang or whatever, and watch like Cody Ko and Noel Miller talk for an hour right on demand. It is, I think, just kind of a symptom of that, where we don't want to sit and watch things at the same time anymore. Though maybe we do. I don't know.
I think it's going to come back around, because
I probably will.
We've talked about this before with like, so you're a huge Succession fan. I'm watching Succession right now for the first time through. And there's a lot of like, that show is excellent. The Bear I'm watching, excellent. There is a lot of really, really good TV out right now, which is great. And when you watch it on streaming, the whole point of streaming was, oh, it's bingeable. We could get it out to you whenever, and you can watch it whenever. Like, but there are now, even with like Hulu subscriptions, I don't know if it's with HBO subscriptions, but it's like you still have to watch ads unless you pay for more. And then when you pay for the whole Hulu package, it's like, well, you can get sports and you can get like all these things that are basically cable TV packages. And I'm like, so we are kind of going backwards to this time of like TV being really good, but you had to sit through the commercials and you had to like go and run and get the ice cream refill while the commercial was on and run back to the TV. And it's like we're kind of entering that time again.
We are.
But the whole point was that it was gonna make it easier to binge watch stuff, and you still can, but it's like there are elements of like the old school methods of viewing TV that we had as kids that are just back, and we're like accepting it.
Well, even watching Succession, I unfortunately didn't get into Succession until the last season, so that I was able to watch as it was released. And HBO releases things, their big shows on Sunday nights at 9 p.m. and it is like it used to be. You hop on Twitter and everybody's watching stuff live, and I mean there were some batshit crazy episodes in the last season of Succession, so to be watching those live with Twitter, you know, in your hand, crazy. And it was fun. I loved it. I was not mad that I had to wait a week before the next episode. I was actually really happy about it because it gave me time to process it and read all the funny tweets and, you know, screenshot the ones that made me laugh and all that stuff. And I think that there is an element of that I think more streaming services are going to move towards, because I think people do like it, and it also keeps people talking about your show for longer.
That's true.
So really, it's a win-win. I don't know where the lose is, you know?
But I guess with like podcasts and with like streaming services and YouTube, it's like, well, I could always go back and watch without having to buy a DVD set or something like that. So that's like a perk of you can still premiere videos on YouTube, or you can still have a release schedule, but you can always go back if you're really bored, or if you really missed this one funny line from an episode of a podcast, like you can go back and find it. But it's weird how we move. It's like the nostalgia loop or whatever it's called. Like analog is back, you know, records are back. I think soon cassette tapes.
I think soon people are going to want more DVDs, which is crazy because Best Buy just stopped selling them.
I just saw that.
But I think in, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years maybe, people are going to be saying, oh, you know, the only way to watch this movie is on Blu-ray, and you have to get the Blu-ray copy, or you have to get the DVD copy. And I think it is sad. I mean, I have my own little DVD collection of movies that I really like. Like I have Pride and Prejudice 2005 on DVD, obviously. You have to. Of
course.
And there's something so special about being able to like take that out of the box and put it in the DVD player and play it. And I think, you know, eventually we'll miss that in the same way that people missed listening to stuff on vinyl.
Yeah. Physical things are important.
They are. Yeah. Physical media.
Yeah.
It's going to come back.
It's going to come back.
Just wait. Don't worry.
Best Buy still has the shit. They're just hiding it
They're
from
just
us
hiding
for
it
now.
in the back.
Yeah.
They're going to bring it out in 5 years, and we're all going to say, I told you so. And
if Blockbuster came back for one day, it would be incredibly profitable.
Oh my gosh.
Just because people, especially people who like I don't even think really grew up with it, would be like, whoa, that's
the
so
novelty.
retro.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, now it's a novelty. When you were a kid, it was like, in my house, we had Friday night movie nights. And so we'd be able to go to the Hollywood Video or the Blockbuster and rent a movie and get popcorn and bring it home and then watch it together. And there was something so fun about that as a kid, to know, okay, once I get home from school, Dad's going to take me to the Hollywood Video. I'm going to rent probably The Music Man. I loved that movie as a kid. I do not know why. I'm probably going to rent The Music Man, and I'm going to eat some popcorn, and I'm going to watch this movie for the 20th time, and I'm going to love it. Like, it's going to be great.
And you grew up with a lot of siblings.
Yeah, I'm the oldest of 6.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So... yeah, so I can imagine that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
To have to wrangle everybody together.
Oh my gosh. Always a challenge. Man. Even still, I mean, we'll watch stuff together now. Like my sister and my brother-in-law and I all watched Succession together, which was so much fun. But just like finding the time to get everybody there to do it and make sure that like nobody has moved on to the next episode. Yeah. Like everyone is here. But it's fun. It builds camaraderie and community with the people that you're doing it with.
Yeah.
Because you have this thing to watch together and you can talk about it together.
Yeah.
And there's something important about the community aspect of television that I think in a binge model you lose.
Yeah.
Because it's just you trying to get through it as fast as possible.
Right.
And then like you can go online and watch it with other people. But when you have the like Succession Sundays where people make, you know, snacks and have people over and watch it together and it becomes an event, it brings back the community element of television and film that I think we've lost a little bit. And I think that will start to come back.
Totally. This is what Nicole Kidman's talking about in those ads.
Exactly. That's what I was just thinking.
Or we come to this place. Whatever. But it's true. It's like watching things or going to a play or doing anything. It's like going to a live show. Like stuff like that is, you get to talk about it and you get to, and then like with a podcast in particular, like I want to do a live show of this eventually. Yeah. But like doing a live show, I've been to podcast live shows where it's like, you listen to the audio then back when it gets released and you're like, I was there. And like, and you get to talk about it with your friends. And like, it is special to do things together.
It is.
And not just like, well, I'm just like, I have 6 hours to kill.
Right.
So I'm going to watch all of a show that I can't even wrap my head around. And then I'm not going to tell anybody about it. I'm just going to be like, wow, that was good TV.
That was a
on to the
great
next
thing.
thing.
Yeah.
So it's a lot.
And I think, I do think we'll cycle back to it, but we'll see how long it takes.
Are any of your siblings creatively inclined in the way that you are?
My sister Claire is a singer.
Oh, cool.
She's a music major, and she sings like in her school's chorus and stuff like that. And I think she eventually wants to be a music therapist.
Oh, cool.
Which I think is really cool.
Yes.
And then my little brother Iggy, who is 15, is an actor. And we joke that we're going to like Nepo sibling the other in. If one makes it big, we have to help the other also make it big. So yeah.
Oh my God.
Iggy is trying to take the New England short film scene by storm.
Nice.
He is constantly sending in self-tapes. He's so driven. And I remember I had this thought, because my parents are an engineer and a nurse. They have no reason having all these creative children. And yet here they are. They have all these creative kids. And I think that's beautiful for them. But I'm the oldest. So when I was going to college and when I was deciding what to do, I didn't have the support of, oh, you can go and audition for a program. Or, oh, here are all the good programs. And I also went to a really small school. So we didn't have a really well-equipped drama department who could be like, this is how you prepare and this is what you do. And these are all the things you need to get ready. Whereas because I'm Iggy's older sister, I can tell him what to do and be the kind of guiding voice for him that I never had, which is really cool. But sometimes like I'm a little jealous of him having me because I'm like, oh, I wish that I had that. But at the same time, I'm very grateful with the path that I had to take because I don't think I would be the same actor that I am now if I didn't go about it the way that I did. And I think that that's important and it's a part of who I am. So, you know, it all happens for a reason. But,
and now you're here and you're making it in New York City and your younger brother is going to see that and be like, oh, I can do
that too.
I think that was something that was really daunting for me is like when I grew up in a small town, I was like, oh, famous people are on TV and that's not for me. And it's like, it was like when I was a little kid, there's like, did you ever do this thing where, so in my elementary school yearbook, I believe when you were in 3rd grade, because my elementary school was 1st to 3rd grade. 3rd grade, they gave you these little like clip art bodies and it was like what do you want to be when you grow up? And it was like your head on like a little
white
like
figure
of like a scientist or a vet or an actor or whatever or an author. And mine in 3rd grade was I wanted to be an actress. And then I was like grew up and I was like, that's not me. I don't want to be in front of the spotlight. And I was like, no, but I do. And I like pushed it down for so long because I was like, that's not going to be for me because people who do that are like really ambitious. And like it's like I couldn't even imagine. This is what Marie and I went to a Mitski concert the other day, and this is exactly what Mitski was talking about.
I know.
Where she was like, it always felt so impossible, so I never did it. And then I got to New York, and I was doing this job, and I found myself ignoring all my responsibilities that I had made in this safe world for myself. When I got the opportunity to sit down and write music or perform music, And I was like, oh, even
Yeah.
she felt that way. Where
Right.
it's like, it felt so impossible because I didn't really have, like, I didn't know anybody who was doing this. We had one guy from
Right.
high school who went on The Voice, and I remember we were
Okay.
like, whoa, that's
Yeah, yeah.
crazy. It's like, somebody's gonna make it out of Ringgold,
Yeah.
New Jersey. And like, now I'm here and I'm like surrounded by people who are just like, you're just going to auditions. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, you can just do that.
Yeah, you could just go.
And I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I feel like you might have been in a similar thing of like,
Yeah.
you went to college for it and you knew what you wanted to do and you had the means to do it, but like, you still didn't know this is how it all works.
I had no idea. And when I got to college, I felt totally inadequate. I had terrible imposter syndrome when I got to college, because I was a double major, and I was an English major first, and that was kind of my focus. And then I was a drama major second. And I was also just really shy. I don't know what was going on there. We can, we'll unpack that at a later time. But when I got there, I wanted to be an actor. I knew that in my bones. Like, it was like, this is what I want to do, but I don't know how to do it. And I don't know how to prove myself to this department and convince them I can be an actor. And I did a terrible job at first. I was so shy and I was so quiet. And they ended up saying, well, let's just put her in the costume shop. And so I got a job in the costume shop, which was great. And I worked there for 3 years in college, and I loved every second of it. But it wasn't acting. And that was what I had gone there to do.
Yeah.
And I kept going to audition after audition after audition. And I would get a call back, and I would go to the call back, and then I wouldn't get cast. And everyone in my class had gotten cast by my sophomore year, and I still hadn't. And I remember I was lucky enough to go to a school with an MFA playwriting program, so we got to work on new shows every year, which is really cool. Because I think it's a skill that you have to learn to be able to work with playwrights that are working on a new piece, and I think that it's really cool to be able to work on that skill in undergrad. But there was a set of 2 plays that were new, and before going into this audition, I remember kind of thinking to myself, you have to get cast in this. Like, you have to. Because everybody else has been cast and you haven't been cast, and you're a failure, and all this like terrible negative self-talk that like starts to happen to you. And I went and I got a call back, and I went to the call back, and I like pulled out all the stops. Like, I just tried as hard as I possibly could. And they ended up just casting the people they had been workshopping it with. And I went home and cried and cried and cried. And I was like, I'm never going to make it. I can't do this. I'm going to leave the department. I'm an English major anyway. I don't need this. I don't need this stress. I don't need this rejection. I don't need this disappointment. I'm not good at it, clearly. Like, I'm not getting cast in anything. So this is a nightmare. But they needed someone to crew those shows, so I went and I costume crewed it, because you had to get like 250 hours or something like that before you graduated. So I went and I crewed it, and I ended up closing out all my hours because I hadn't been getting cast in anything. So I was like, well, I'll just go crew. So I finished up all my hours with that my sophomore year, which is like unheard of. Nobody finishes them that quickly. But again, I wasn't getting cast in anything, so it was like, well, might as well. And while I was crewing that, I managed to get a concussion. And it was right before the auditions for the last show of the year, which is Our Town. And I was like, well, I'm concussed. I can't memorize a monologue while I'm concussed. And I went to the director of the show, and he was like, you're auditioning, right? And I said, oh, no, I'm not auditioning. I'm concussed. I'm literally like incapable of doing anything right now. I'm supposed to be resting my brain. And he said to me, don't worry about memorizing a monologue. Come in for the callbacks and read. And then he casted me from that. And then after that, I got cast in every single thing I auditioned for. But I was lucky enough in that scenario and in that situation to have somebody who believed in me more than I believed in myself. Because I had given up. I was done. I was so irritated. I was so tired. I was so frustrated. I was ready to, at the end of the year, leave and just do the English thing and follow that. And I was lucky enough to have Matt, who said, no. Like, you're going to come and you're going to audition and you're going to do this thing. And if it hadn't been for him, I wouldn't be sitting here in New York. You know what I mean? It's like that. And it's such a crazy thing to think about, because there was that moment of almost giving up, because I just didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea. I had no experience. And I remember looking at my classmates, and they knew all the terms, and they knew everything that you needed to do and all this stuff. And I was like, I don't know what, flying stuff out is. Like, I was just so stupid. Like, I had no experience and no idea what anything was. And I was looking at my classmates, and like, of course they're getting cast over me. They know what's going on.
Yeah.
I am coming at this from a world that, super small high school with no theater department. And I had been like putting on my own little plays because I had started my own little club. But like, you don't learn anything from doing it like you learn how to do it, but you don't learn the like terminology and the technical stuff for anything. And so you're sitting there going, well, I know nothing, and I'm not going to be able to succeed. And I just was lucky enough to have somebody who said, no, like, we will cast you in something and you'll do fine. And I did. And I was I think that's one of the things that now later in life I'm really grateful for, because I think it taught me, one, like, don't give up.
Yeah.
which is so lame, but also like what will come will eventually come. Like, what is meant for you will eventually make its way there. It just might not happen in the way that you want it to. You're not going to be the star of every show your freshman year. So sorry, Tiny Marie. Like, you'll have to wait a little bit, but it will come eventually. And I think it made me a better actor, because it forced me to become one. Yeah. It forced me to say, okay, I have to fix this, and this, and I have to meet with this professor and figure out what I can do better, and I have to practice and all of this stuff. And I think that I'm happy it forced me not to be lazy about it. Yeah. Because I think sometimes I at least can get lazy with stuff and be like, well, I'm fine where I'm at, and that's okay. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Get concussed before a major audition. Yeah. And good things will happen to you. I think this is what I've learned.
Yeah, I think that's the moral of the story.
And don't give up.
Get a concussion. Yeah. Also get a concussion. Yeah.
Is number one.
Yep. Get concussed, and then know a guy named Matt. I think is like the two things.
That's so easy. There's so many mats.
Yeah.
And there's so many like hard surfaces in the world.
It did bump your head on. Yeah.
Bump your head on.
Yeah.
Okay, you mentioned that you worked in the costume department.
Yeah.
This is actually perfect, because I've prepared a sort of a segment. It's not as fun of a game as I feel like I have. Not that the last things that I've done were super fun games, but there's okay, I'm really like pun reliant these days.
Oh, I love a good pun.
So I have, oh no, it's okay. Hold on a second. I'll cut this. My Google Drive page is not. Oh, no. This isn't. Oh, damn it. It's okay. Well,
it is.
Maybe I left it in here. Oh, you're under this name. Okay. So your name is Marie Kottenstette?
Kottenstette. Yeah.
Oh, no. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, well, the rhyme doesn't work anymore.
Oh, no. It can be Kottenstette if you want it to be, because
your last name is pronounced Kottenstette.
Yeah.
That's so
But
cute.
There's a huge debate in my family, actually. I didn't know this, but then I went out for a family reunion, I think when I was in college or something, out in Colorado, because my dad's family is from Colorado. And I guess half the family pronounces it Kottenstette and half the family pronounces it Kottenstette, and we're just part of the half of the family that pronounces it Kottenstette. But I like Kottenstette because it rhymes with like mom's spaghetti, and stuff like that. So you can make some jokes about it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the joke that I have made, it's not even a joke, doesn't work with the name as it's supposed to be pronounced, unfortunately.
But that's fine.
I can't believe I never even asked you because when I got your phone number, you just said I'll spell my last name, so I didn't even hear it one time.
Yeah.
You just spelled it, and I looked at it and I was like, that's a lot of T's.
It's a lot.
And then I didn't think about it at all. Okay, well, welcome to Marie's cotton dress, as it would have been. And I want you to talk about some costumes that you've had. I have 3 pages from your Instagram, 3 posts from your Instagram up. Again, had I known it was not going to rhyme, I would have thought of something cooler. I would have made you like rap Eminem or something.
Oh yeah,
because of the mom spaghetti thing. Yeah. Okay, this is fine. We power through. Okay, so
I love this.
There's a look that you have. I went on your Instagram.
Okay.
And I found 3 things. You kind of already talked about this, but there's a post that you made 20 weeks ago where you're wearing a sort of like a yellow checkered frill sleeve dress, and your hair, it looks very like 1920s.
Yes.
What is this from?
So this is from All My Sons. This is the most recent kind of big production that I did, and the picture that you're talking about is me and the actress who plays Kate, whose name is Robin. She's phenomenal.
Oh, she's not one of the ones who was gossiping about you in the waiting room.
No, she wasn't. Robin is one of my favorite people I've ever worked with. Huge fan of Robin.
Okay.
Luckily, everybody in that show was great, and I loved everyone I worked with. This costume was Lydia's. I play a housewife in 1946 or 47, right post World War II. Mm-hmm. She has 3 kids and is just this bubbly, fun, incredible person. And so I have my hair done in like a victory roll, which is very 1940s. And then I had the yellow dress, and then I also had this like blue floral apron. I loved this costume. It was, the costume designer actually made that dress for herself.
Okay.
And then brought it in because she said, I think this will be perfect for your character.
Oh, that's so
cute.
And
it was perfect.
Yeah.
That was definitely one of my favorite costumes I've had recently, just because the second I put it on, and Robin would say this to me, I'd look in the mirror and she said, you do not look like yourself. You look like someone completely different.
Yeah.
And I did. I don't dress like I'm from the 1940s.
Right.
And so
you wear, as we established, a red sweater and blue jeans.
Yeah. I do not wear yellow checkered dress, blue apron. But Lydia Luby does. And so that was a great costume. Huge fan. 10 out of 10.
Amazing.
Love that one.
And you did already kind of share a story about this already. This was the audition, the callback audition that you had to watch everybody else do.
Yep. That was a great show.
From 43 weeks ago, caption: forever grateful to this whole crew for letting me live out my dream of getting to eat ice cream while acting. You're wearing sort of a blue midi square neckline dress. Is this for a party? Was this
This was a premiere.
A premiere.
I got this dress on ASOS. Shout out ASOS. Classic store. This was for a short film I did. Actually, maybe it doesn't qualify as a short film. I'm not sure exactly what you would call it, because it was 3 short films that were all interconnected. So it actually made one feature-length film.
Oh.
But I appeared in clips of the other films, but not as a lead.
Okay.
So it was kind of cool. But this was for like a film that I did with Rhode Island College, which is in Providence. Mm-hmm. And I played a character named Becky, whose partner had passed away, and who was kind of finding love for someone else and love for life through her love for this new person. But definitely like heavy at some points, but also kind of like rom-com-y at others. It was fun. Definitely something that definitely a role that I tend to get cast in a lot, which is like really sad, but also fun. And it's like, great, awesome. I love it. Love to see it.
The whole dynamic of human emotion.
Yeah.
It's sad, but also having fun.
Having a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the final look that I have found is from 304 weeks ago.
Oh my gosh.
If Michael Scott really wanted his office to be like a family, he should have stopped by the costume shop for some tea and advice. This made me realize that you probably did work in a costume shop. And you have this very long, beautiful, flowy dress on. And then I was like, what if this is not from a play, but it's just you wearing it from a costume?
Me wearing it.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. This was from, so at Seaway, at the end of every year, we have something called Gilby's, which is our award ceremony. And we get like we have little statues that we hand out. It's actually really fun and very, very cute. And this was my sophomore year. So this was right after I had finished Our Town, I think. And the theme for it was like spring fling or spring florals.
Oh,
and so I was
cute.
like, okay,
Okay.
I'll put on a floral dress and have, do my hair all cute and call it a day. But yeah, I didn't win anything at this one, which was totally fine.
Have you won what are they, a Gilby?
Yes, I won a Gilby.
A Gilby?
I have it at home. It is sitting on my shelf still. It has fallen a few times because I had a cat that I did unfortunately have to leave with my parents back in Massachusetts. She did not make the trip to New York with me because I have a cat and a dog. So she is living with my parents. My dog lives with me here in New York. But she has knocked my Gilby over. My cat has knocked my Gilby over a couple times.
They always know how to get the most valuable thing.
The most valuable thing. I'm like, please do not break my Gilby. But
Don't touch my Gilby.
I won my Gilby my junior year for. I'm trying to think. I won it for. I was in a production of the Laramie Project, and I played. So in the Laramie Project, there's like 60 characters. It's a collection of interviews, and I did something called the Mercedes Herrero track, which is the name of the actor who originated the role, but all the characters that she played. So I played like this one teacher named Rebecca Hilliker, who is like a drama teacher at a school in Wyoming, and then I played this like drug addict named Shadow, and then I played this cop called Reggie Flutie, who is the cop who found Matthew Shepard on the fence in Wyoming, and I won an award for that. But I think I really won it for playing Reggie, because I think that was the best work that I had done in college up till that point. And like Rebecca Hilliker, obviously, great character, love her.
I don't know anything about anything.
I mean, if you know the play, classic Rebecca Hilliker, drama teacher doing her thing. But I really think that like Reggie Flutie as a character and as a real person, because she is a real person, is really compelling, and her story is really compelling. And so when you, as an actor, get really good material to work with, it's so much easier to do a good job. And that was the position I was in. And I also, with that one, was surrounded by a really incredible cast of people. And so that's the other thing, is when you're working with people who are really good, you can also do really good work. And I think that was why I ended up being, fortunate enough to get a Gilby out of that one. Gilby. Yeah.
I think that I just love that it's called a Gilby.
I do too. Yeah. Yeah.
Award names are always so cutesy.
I know. I love it though. You kind of have to love it. And so it's named after Father Gilbert Hartke, who founded Hartke Theater, and so it's shaped like a little monk, and which is really funny. And
your cat's just like, get
that out of here. I do not want that thing. No, like get this gold statue away from me. I want this thing shattered on the floor.
Well, Marie, where can people find you, your work, anything about you? Do you want anybody to find you anywhere?
No, I'm just kidding. No, you can find me on Instagram if you want to see those pictures that Julie was talking about, at Marie_Elise22. You can also find me on TikTok.
Ooh.
But I'm trying to think of my username. I'm like, what is it? I think it's at Gingery22. But I could be totally wrong. I could just be spouting nonsense right now. But you can check it out if you want.
Is your birthday a 22?
Yes.
What is it?
I'm August 22nd.
Nice.
Yeah.
April 24th.
Okay, there you go.
So like,
we're basically
almost
the same.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Okay, well, thanks for coming on my podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
And the presence of a real producer really helps things along.
Oh, yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
2 cameras, like, we're getting there.
Yeah.
And it's thanks to you.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I did all this work.
Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you like the show, please give it a follow on Instagram at curingmystagefright. And you can also email the show at curingmystagefright@gmail.com if you feel so inclined. All right, as always, music is by Sam Levine and art is by Kelly King. And I will see you in the next one.